We're into the third week of practice in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and this is the Giants Training Camp Report presented by Citizens. It's also a countdown to Friday's Fan Fest at MetLife Stadium. Temperatures in the low 80 degrees here in North Jersey. I'm Paul Dottino. He's two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. So glad you could join us today. It is a fully padded practice. Now, the Giants had one of those on Monday, Carl. They went back to shells on Tuesday, and now they're fully ramping up today.
Well, this is where you need to go. You play in full pad. So they've had a ramp-up period from the start of camp to where we are today. And I think this is where you really start to see more mistakes, more opportunities for learning, because now that you're wearing pads, things are moving faster. You're under duress a lot more than just in shells. So these coaches, and you'll start to see, this is where, for some of the young players, especially rookies, you may start to see a few mistakes because, you know, it's just more to deal with now. Now guys can get their hands on you and do a lot more. So we'll see how it goes. But again, every day is an opportunity for these guys to get better, as Eli said yesterday.
Speaking of rookies, there is Thibodeaux, Giants' #1 draft pick, an outstanding pass rusher at Oregon. What are they trying to get out of him during this drill?
Well, he's working on extension and release here, getting off, playing the run, and basically setting the edge is what he's doing. He's coming off, you'll see a blocker reach out to him. Now he's pushing him back in the backfield. That's a 6 technique.
One of the things that we know about Wink Martindale's system is even though Thibodeaux is known as an edge rusher, he will line up all over the defense, Carl. You'll even see him in the interior on occasion.
Well, he's an explosive player, and you want to be able, especially the athleticism that he has. He's big enough to hold up in the middle if they send him in to do some things there. So it's great to have the versatility of a guy like that. And heck, he's right now everything they're building him up to be, because with a guy like Wink Martindale, he's going to move his players around, and you need to have a diverse skill set.
We're looking at the linebackers right now, and you know, those guys, specifically the front 7 guys and, of course, the offensive linemen, they love the padded practices because when you don't have the pads on, they really can't show their stuff very much, can they?
And they can't grab you. The offensive lineman, you want pads on, it gives them a bigger target to grab.
As far as Thibodeaux, let me go back to him for a second, though, Carl, because, again, they'd like to use him in a variety of ways. Do you expect him to be more of a stand-up edge rusher, or will he sometimes perhaps be on the ground with his hand in the grass?
Well, I think with definitive pass rush situations, he could have his hand in the ground. But, I mean, they're going to be some type of a hybrid where he can be able to move laterally, vertically, and that's going to require him standing up. As you can see here, he's playing runaway. He's got contain here. He's closing down the line of scrimmage, and then he gets back up in case it's a boot.
The other day they were doing drills with him where he did the shedding at the line of scrimmage and then had to take on that second blocker and had to try to push him back into the pocket. This guy has some strength and speed. He's such a good mixture, and that's what makes him so dangerous.
Yeah, the diversity of skill set. But you know what? You've got 3 other guys. We were talking about this before we went on air.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of different types of outside guys here. You've got Ojulari, you've got Martinez, you got Ellison Smith, right?
Quincy Roche right there, number 95.
So Quincy Roche. So there are so many different tools. We know the main cog is going to be Thibodeaux, and it's going to be Ojulari. And then Martinez has got to factor in because he's at that stage of his career where he's got to show and prove. Either that or he's going to become a special teams player, and I don't know what he can contribute on special teams at his size. So he's got to really factor into what they want their outside guys to be.
It's a different collection of guys on the edge. Ellison Smith is a taller guy. He's got a lot of length. To me, he's one of the most intriguing players in this camp, Carl, because last year as a rookie, remember, he came in after coming from a smaller school where Bryce Popp, the former Bill and Packer, was his pass rushing coach. That school had opted out because of COVID. So he was way behind, and then he was injured last year. So he's very green, but my goodness, Carl, he's got a lot of intriguing skills.
He's a work in progress, Paul. I mean, he's still learning the game at the pro level. There's so many things they like about him, so I don't think they're going to give up on him. But he's still got a lot to learn.
We've also gotten a look at number 55, Jihad Ward, coming over from Jacksonville as a free agent, had some time with Wink Martindale in the Ravens scheme a couple years ago. They nickname him the Live Wire. Carl, that's because he is always energized and screaming and yelling and all over the place at practice. The kind of guy who coaches say inspires other people to kind of wake up.
Especially on the dog days. You need that guy when everybody's looking around the locker room trying to find some energy. He's the guy that gets them all going. You know, he makes you get the juices flowing again.
You know, when talking about this linebacker group, yes, the edge rushers are certainly a focus for a lot of folks because they're the ones who usually get to the quarterback. But the Giants are very happy that Blake Martinez is back this year, Carl, coming off of that horrible ACL injury. He looks like he's on track. They're ramping him up right now. You're not seeing a lot of him now doing some of these particular positional drills. But Martinez, he's a 150 tackle a season machine. Very important to this team.
Yeah, he is. And I can't wait to see him back out there. He just has a knack for the football, understands his football IQ is just so high. And his ability to find the ball, read angles, and be where he's supposed to be before the offense has been the key to his success. So I'm really excited to see him get back out there.
Something that's very interesting to me is that right now the Giants are going with a safety, Xavier McKinney, getting the helmet, relaying the calls to the defense on the field. Usually it's the linebacker, as you know. Martinez has done that for the Giants. He also did it for Green Bay. I remember Everson Walls telling me that he had the signals from Belichick for the Super Bowl against the Bills in Super Bowl 25. What is your thought on a safety making the calls instead of a linebacker?
Well, if you think about it, Paul, it's the appropriate thing to do or designation because he's going to be on the field all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's also some insight into where the league has gone offensively, but where personnel has gone defensively. You can't, like, there's going to be times in games where Blake won't be on the field, right? Who's your play caller? So if you got a guy who's going to be a constant every single down, then he's the guy who should get the call because there's going to be a lot of different personnel coming in and out, right? Linebackers off, defensive linemen off. That defensive backfield only grows. It doesn't shrink. So he's the guy that will be able to help facilitate the calls.
And I'm sure that one of the odd packages that we will see out of Wink Martindale will not just have one or two extra defensive backs. You might even see 7 out there on a particular play.
Sure. So, I mean, not giving the linebacker the green dot is not a slight. It's just a fact of how the league is playing now. You're going to have more defenses out, more defensive backs out there, and your linebackers, you know, first and second down, if that, you know, in today's NFL.
We're getting a look at some offensive plays now as they're running some passing drills. Davis Webb just hitting Saquon Barkley along the left sideline. It's interesting because when you look at the skill sets of the different backers who have to cover these guys, and there's a pass from Daniel Jones over to the right side, speed and athleticism and the ability to cover. Tay Crowder did a lot of coverage stuff when he was in the interior, replacing Martinez because of the injury last year. Do you have any gauge as to who the other inside linebacker could be besides Martinez? Because there's quite a competition going on.
Well, here's the beautiful part about it. It may not be another inside linebacker. There may be another body inside.
Right.
But that linebacker per se position may be a defensive back. It may be a safety. Mm-hmm. It may be an additional defensive end. So it could be just Blake Martinez. Now, keep in mind, if you listen to a lot of what Xavier McKinney talked about in the freedom that this defense gives him as opposed to the system he was in last year, he said, I'll get to be up.
Right.
I'll get to be up. I'll get to be back. So that means that a guy like Julian Love can be interchangeable as a free safety. So this is the beautiful part, and it's the beautiful mystery of what this Giant defense will be under Wink Martindale.
How important do you think it is for this offense to show all this speed and diversity? And we talk a lot about the pre-snap motion that Coach Dable and Coach Kafka want to implement for the defense to get looks at those kinds of plays. How helpful can that be for them?
Well, it's extremely helpful because it's a communication thing, but I think it's more helpful for the offense when there's a line in front of them, because the communication aspect of your offense versus, or any offense versus a Wink Martindale schematic is crucial, because when you look at games that Wink has coached defenses, when it starts to move around, he wants every offensive person to be in the action, the accountability action, and that's where the mistakes happen, right? If you can line up and two players can call out safety and Mike, then everybody's set. But for this Giant offense to really be at its best against anybody, you put that line on the field and let them start to try to figure out what's happening in front of them from their own team. They'll be prepared for just about any defense in football.
All right, now we're going to see some trench work here. Offensive line against the defensive line. And these drills are always fun to watch, Carl.
They are. Like, they don't want anybody to go to the ground, but when you get 300 pounds of man either going forward or backwards, see there, you see a guy go down there.
Dexter Lawrence, he, by the way, is a heck of a lot bigger than he has been in the past.
Well, again, that may be another telltale sign as to how they plan to play Dexter Lawrence in this front. Like, Dexter's now going to probably spend some time at nose tackle, right? He's going to be eating up blocks, maybe for one linebacker and a safety. But they're going to move him around. He's still athletic, but he looks like he's about 15 or 20 more pounds of muscle. There's Thibodeaux goes. That's a good, great counter move there.
Against Evan Neal.
Yeah, he went with a bull rush and then disengaged and ripped under. That's a real good counter move, because what happens in the bull rush, you start to push the offensive lineman and then he anchors, right? And right as he anchored there, he ripped up and grabbed an angle on him. So that's really good, because most pass rushers, they'll get caught up on a bull rush and then it's a stalemate. You know, the lineman gets caught off guard, he re-anchors himself, and then the defender can't disengage. That was a great job by.
Now, you just talked about some great technique there, but in those drills, are the coaches more concerned with the effort, the feistiness, and at least you're going to fight your way through, or are they more concerned with the technique?
You go out there to win every play. There's no A for effort. It's E for execution. They want, what are you doing when there's a stalemate? Are you working on something else? And again, when we listen to the player interviews, and I listened to Kayvon Thibodeaux's presser, he talked about working counter moves, not just his first move, but a counter move. And that's the mark of a kid that understands that it's not just effort, it's execution.
Coach Dable has talked a lot to us about you want to have smart players here because of the kinds of things that these coaches want to run. If the guys don't pick it up quickly and don't understand how to make it work, that becomes a huge problem.
100%. Like, you have to, if you cannot execute the game plan, the game will not stop and slow down for you. You've got to catch up, or they're going to replace you with someone else.
All right, so here we go with a toss in the backfield for Saquon Barkley. And
yeah, in that last play, I don't know if you saw who flashed in there at the first man at the point of attack, Blake Martinez.
First unit defense against the first unit offense. And there you see also John Feliciano at center, the former Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, he's back. He's been out with some exhaustion issues. And you know, this is interesting too, because in these types of practices, and we've seen this, the defense seems so far ahead of the offense. And that's normally how it goes in training camps early on. But then once it gets a little more complex and the offense starts to script some of the things they want to do, you start to see the advantage go to the offense.
Well, I think it's fair to say at this point, Carl, a lot of the defenders, they kind of know the snap count a little. They can anticipate on the timing a little, so it helps with their get-off. And I try to tell people all the time, that first couple of weeks, don't be surprised if they are just a bit sharper.
And now watch that change a little bit on Friday.
Because at the Fan Fest.
Yeah, at the Fan Fest. That's going to be where the offense kind of pulls out a few stops and they start to game plan some things, and you'll start to see it.
Daniel Jones running the operation. Coach always says we want to make sure he's clean, getting in and out of the huddle and makes the right calls. Right now, they're primarily just working on running plays, though, so there's not too much fanciness going on. That all that motion in the backfield we were talking about, you're not going to see that here on these running plays. Let me ask you something about Leonard Williams. Had a career-high 81 tackles last year, Carl. I know his sack numbers were down, only had 6.5. But my goodness, he had very quietly a terrific season and plays the run well.
Yeah, 81 tackles for an interior lineman is a lot. That's approaching linebacker numbers. That means that there's one linebacker that wasn't eating because Leonard Williams was making all the plays.
You see some of the backups in there now. Tyrod Taylor with a handoff to Gary Brightwell, who, by the way, has had a very explosive camp. He looks like he's got some juice going.
Yeah, and this is great for Brightwell because, again, you're talking about young ascending talent, right? And we all sit back and kind of procrastinate during the offseason who's going to back up who's the replacement for who. Sometimes we lose sight that you draft guys and you want them to get better. You want them to factor in because that takes a lot of burden off of your salary cap and free agent decisions when you know you have players in the pipeline developing.
Brightwell had 8 tackles on special teams last year, and obviously he will play specials again this season, but he's trying to fight for a roster spot as a third running back behind Saquon Barkley and Matt Breida, because I think it's safe to say those guys are 1 and 2.
Well, it's nothing safe. The only safe to say is Saquon Barkley is 1.
Okay.
Everything else, if Brightwell outperforms Breida, he's going to be number 2. Simple as that. That's what camp is about. Camp is about the competition. And you want your best players to ascend to their rightful places, and they earn those spots.
Giants again keeping Tyrod Taylor and some of the reserves in there for this snap. And again, there goes another run. That's Jason Corbin, free agent out of Florida State, who showed some really good athleticism. Again, he was not a full-time bell cow with the Seminoles, but in his action down there, he showed a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and where he's going to make this team is executing his assignments in drills like this, but really flashing on special teams. He's got to really show something on special teams.
In 3+ seasons with the Seminoles, ran for combined over 1,800 yards and also 5.5 yards a carry. And by the way, you mentioned special teams. Heck of a kickoff returner, 25 yards a pop.
There you go.
Which can also be incredibly valuable.
That's where they like him. I mean, he's a free agent behind 3 other running backs, right? What's your specialty? Where can you find an opportunity to impress the coaches? It's going to be on special teams and lowering your assignments here in these drills, but special teams is where your real opportunity is.
Here's a look at Davis Webb, right now the number 3 quarterback as they run things during the course of training camp. Of course, coming back from the Buffalo Bills, hands off to Brightwell around the left side. Davis Webb, a guy who can be immeasurably helpful to Daniel Jones because he's coming from the Buffalo system and is such a coach on the field per se. He and Jones are like inseparable.
Yeah, he's a great kid too. You know, he started his career here with the Giants. Extremely studious. So having him in the quarterback room certainly will help the learning curve with Daniel Jones.
It's the first time I've seen a Giants quarterback wearing a visor inside their helmet. That's a new look for Giants QBs.
Well, he doesn't want the glare on the clipboard. I'm sure.
Either that or he's thinking maybe he'll audition as a linebacker if this doesn't work out.
No. He just doesn't want the glare on the from the cellophane on the clipboard to blind what he's charting.
Where do you stand on this offense having a fullback, Carl? I believe last year a dozen teams in the National Football League did employ a standard fullback, although he may not have always lined up as a standard. He could have been an H-back. The Giants right now, I don't know if they have room for one or not, but how do you feel about that?
The league has changed, Paul. I mean, some teams need them because they are very creative in how they want to run in their physicality, but this is a wide open league, and it's passing, it's movement, it's angles, and fullbacks don't give you that in a lot of cases. So you have to be a kind of a hybrid fullback tight end with a lot of athleticism.
All right. Well, once again, folks, it has been a very fun day here out at Giants training camp. Fans still milling around, staying hydrated, as we like to say,
please.
Carl. You want to be safe. For Carl Banks, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you next time on the Giants Training Camp Report presented by Citizens. So long, everybody.